Good morning everyone and welcome to my thoughts video on WWE RAW 18th of August 2025. Like last week, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm going to be watching along and giving my views on it as it happens, between matches, between segments, etc. I don't know a huge amount about what to expect this week. I do know that the Xavier Woods Penta match is due to happen, so we will see how that goes when it gets to it. But in the meantime, I'm pretty much in the dark as to what's going to happen. Thinking about what I'd like to see from this episode, we do have Clash in Paris coming up. There's still a bit of the card to be decided. I think back to the Money in the Bank at WrestleMania in 2007, where in the weeks building up to it, we had the participants a bit facing off against each other in singles matches. I'd like to see something like that with us approaching the Fatal 4-Way. I think I'd like to see maybe Rollins versus Punk one week, LA Knight versus Jey Uso, then the next week Jey Uso versus Rollins, Punk versus LA Knight. I think that would help build towards a match quite well. But we'll see what we get. The opening segment's about to start, so I will be back with my thoughts on that soon. So Philadelphia are the host tonight, and it opens with Paul Heyman coming out with the rest of the Vision, and he does most of the mic work, which is good because he's so good on it. And he talks about Philadelphia and says, "I've done a lot for this city. You should be chanting Paulie, Paulie, Paulie," and the crowd oblige. Now, he goes round the Vision explaining how great each of them are, which I'm sure we've seen quite a bit. This whole idea of Bronson Reed stealing shoes, I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest. It just seems a little bit tacky to me, though comments like the Shoonami, I guess, are amusing to an extent. Anyway, when Rollins decides he's going to give his thought after coming out looking not too far from, I'd say, a woman going to church on a Sunday in a flowery dress, he is interrupted by Jey Uso, who comes out and gets the crowd going like he always does. Now, I've heard mixed opinions on Jey's entrance, but I do have a lot of time for it, the main reason being what he does for the children in the crowd. You can tell it means the world to them when he comes out and he invites them to start dancing with him, and he goes one further tonight by even inviting them to say yeet down the microphone. So, I do have time for it in that respect, though sometimes when he comes to the ring it does feel like the entrance takes about half an hour. But he doesn't make it all the way to the ring tonight. He comes out and gets on the mic. Now, I don't think he's the best on the mic. It's not always easy to hear what he's got to say, but it's clear the point that he's getting across on this particular occasion. He starts by saying, "I'm tired of hearing you talk, Rollins," which is interesting given he hasn't said anything this evening, but he says he's tired of hearing them all talk, and he is going to win the championship at Clash in Paris. Rollins goes, "Can you believe what he just said? He's insulting all of us, he's insulting Bron Breakker, and that is not good enough." And he talks to Bron Breakker a little bit like a child, I find, in a bit of a manipulative way. He says he's saying his family's more important than yours, which I found a little weird, if I'm honest, and I think Breakker's worth a bit more than that kind of talk, but I think we'll get there eventually. Anyway, it's decided there's going to be an Extreme Rules match between Jey Uso and Bron Breakker, so I'm not sure how I feel about that really. I do feel that Jey Uso is going to need the win heading into Clash in Paris. If he does lose, I feel he needs to be protected as far as it goes, with him losing by something like the Vision interrupting, which I expect will happen in some capacity. This is not going to be a clean match as far as no disqualifications go. It will be one where there are several interruptions, I believe. At the same time, I don't want Bron Breakker to be buried. I have a lot of time for his in-ring ability, and I want him to perform well as well. I said last week that he's very good in the ring. I had quite mixed feelings about this opening segment, and we'll see what happens when we do get to the match. First backstage segment, and we see Io Sky with the Kabuki Warriors. They were quite prominent on last week's show. There were a few apologies thrown around, and we are friends, and that's what matters the most. The Kabuki Warriors, offer their support for this week, and Io once again declines and says, I need to do this on my own before she heads out for a match. So if the Kabuki Warriors do end up getting involved again this week, it will be very interesting to see where it goes, because there's every chance it's not going to be positive. So Io's match was against Raquel Rodriguez, so a continuation of last week's issues with the tag team of her and Roxanne Perez. So this was a good match, I thought, a good way to really open the show. Not always the most fast-paced, but they're different sort of wrestlers, really. Raquel is a powerhouse and Io is a high flyer. But I thought they worked well, even if Io did oversell a little bit at times. There was a time where she was thrown towards the turnbuckle, and rather than running into it at the level she was at, she sort of leaped towards the top of it, I thought. But yeah, an enjoyable match. I particularly liked the bit when she was tripped by Roxanne Perez, so on the second time she decided to take her out before leaping through the ropes onto Raquel. It was Io who got the win, and she did it quite well in the end, but not in a way that I thought made Raquel look weak, which was good. After the match, Roxanne obviously wasn't happy about this, came in and they started a 2-on-1 attack on Io. And then it was Rhea Ripley, slightly to my surprise, who came out and saved Io. So I'm not sure where they're going to be going with this. The Kabuki Warriors might be a bit envious of the fact that Rhea was the one who came out and saved her. You've got the comments that Rhea made last week about trusting the Kabuki Warriors, so it could be heading there, but I don't know if Raquel and Roxanne from the Judgment Day will continue to be involved too. Then you also have the whole Women's World Championship issue as well. I don't think Io's going to be forgetting about that in a hurry. So lots still to come on this, I would say. We return to backstage at this point, and LA Knight is about to have an interview with Jackie. It barely begins before CM Punk interrupts and says, sorry for interrupting, but me and you need to be on the same page in the coming weeks. Now, there was a lot of tension between the two of them, and I believe they're both very good at their promos. This was an enjoyable scene. LA Knight says, I had no issue with you. Issue is, I want the championship. You keep getting involved in it, and it's annoying. Punk says, we're not going to make it unless we stick together because Rollins and his goons are all going to attack us. Knight pretty much says, I don't care. I'm going to be the one who wins, so deal with it. Punk isn't too pleased about that. So, I don't know what's going to come of this if LA Knight has rejected Punk's offer. If he ends up being attacked by Rollins and the goons, then Punk may make a point of not getting involved. But the tension between these two is obviously quite clear, so how's it going to end up? Not sure. It looks like I was potentially right about the jealousy from the Kabuki Warriors, as we have another backstage segment where Io is talking with Rhea, and the Kabuki Warriors come. Asuka isn't happy and says, so it's all right for her to help you, but not us. And Rhea bites back by saying, well, I came out because you weren't there. So it starts a massive argument with shouting at each other. Io's had enough. She screams and says, stop fighting. Then she screams even more, starts yelling in Japanese and exits. Asuka turns to Rhea and says, stay out of our business. So they're obviously not happy. I don't know what's going to come of this, especially if Io and Rhea might still be involved in the world title picture. The expected Penta versus Xavier Woods comes next. A relatively slow match, I thought, but we still had some good moves in there. It was nice to see Xavier Woods perform some of his moves. The New Day, to an extent, have become a little bit of a joke and comic relief lately. so it's good to see what he is capable of. It was Penta who got the win. We had another good move where he used Xavier Woods as a stepping stool to be able to take out Grayson Waller and Kofi Kingston, and some good moves to win it with the super kick and then the finisher. I will say Xavier probably should have laid down after the second move rather than hitting the ground and sitting back up, looking out of it, but still, we had a decent enough match, I thought, and is it the end of this little mini rivalry? I'm not entirely sure, but nice to see both of them in the ring deliver a relatively solid match, if not a little bit slow. Hope you don't mind, I may have a guest helping to present for the next part of the show. There's a small clip from Triple Mania after Dom lost the match due to AJ Styles' interference. He's addressing him saying, "You just cost me the championship and I will get my rematch with Vikingo." But at that point, his dad, Rey Mysterio, walks past him, and the argument's quite amusing, even if it's only a few seconds, where Dom goes, "Yeah, well, it was AJ's fault, and I'm still the best Mysterio." And his dad goes, "Yeah, you're crazy, get off Cloud 9. I thought that was amusing, I quite enjoyed watching it, but we will see where that goes. But anyway, up next we have World Tag Team Champions Finn Balor and JD McDonough taking on Dragon Lee and Mr. Iguana. So this was a much quicker match, I mean more fast-paced by that, with a lot of movement, and it was quite a quick match, but we got to see all four of them in the ring. I was quite impressed with JD McDonough and his athleticism. Mr. Iguana's obviously quite new, seems to an extent be the modern day Santino Marella. The Cobra is now an iguana, so there's a bit of comic relief in there as well. But a relatively enjoyable match. I did think the moment where Dragon Lee and Mr. Iguana both jumped over the ropes could have done with a little bit better timing, because we had Dragon Lee going over first, and then Finn Balor seemed to wait for Mr. Iguana, I'd say. But a sturdy match and quite enjoyable. But it was to set up what's going to happen in the future. It did finish when Dirty Dom got involved, like I thought he might. But I expected AJ Styles might turn up, but it wasn't. It was Vikingo who came in to try and balance things after the 3-on-2 assault. It was still the Judgment Day who finished with the upper hand, however, with Dom obviously annoyed that he didn't win the championship at Triple Mania, and it's clear that we've got more to come from that, but it does leave me wondering what role AJ Styles is going to play going forward, so we will see. We return backstage and it's Becky Lynch having an interview, stood there looking like the Michelin Man. I can't take credit for that one, my friend is the one who said that, but he is absolutely right. I'm not a fan of the current costume because it makes her look like the Michelin Man. Anyway, I thought it was a better interview from Becky than some of the ones I've seen. I'm not the biggest fan of her mic skills. She's not always that clear and that sort of thing, and I believe she's often out-talked during conversations, but I believe this was quite a good one where she explained why she attacked Natalya the week before, or didn't attack Natalya as far as she's concerned. She said, "Oh, Natalya attacked me, she started it a few weeks ago, so I gave Maxine the chance and obviously I beat her, and then I was just kindly giving her advice and she got involved. So I'm gonna show Natalya what it's like to step in the ring with the greatest this evening." So that match is next, and it's the Intercontinental Championship on the line again, which I was not expecting. So again, I expect Becky to win, because I don't think they will take it from her in this current situation. But we'll see. I'm not sure what they're building towards, but I will get some answers in a minute. We get another video of Bayley being depressed and hearing voices in her head. I don't know what they plan on doing with this particular storyline, but I will keep an eye on it, because it could be interesting, could not be. but that is where things are with Bayley at the minute. But we didn't get an appearance from Lyra this week, so again, not sure what they're going to do with her, but hopefully all will be explained in the coming weeks. So not really an awful lot to say about this match, to be honest. It was quite clearly there to make Becky look more unpleasant and build up a bit of momentum for her with 2 wins in 2 weeks, but it's clear that it seems to be setting up a rivalry with Nikki Bella after what happened 2 weeks beforehand. So, as I said, not a huge amount went on. Natalya gave an okay showing of herself given her injured arm, and it was the injured arm that cost her in the end as Becky locked in the disarmer and Natalya tapped out. But Becky wasn't happy leaving it at that. She kept the disarmer in place. Maxine tried to stop it and she attacked Maxine as well, and it took Nikki Bella coming in and fighting against Becky at that point and saying, "Don't forget about me," effectively. So it's clear that we're heading towards a match between these two. I'm not sure what's going to come of it. I'm not sure how I feel about the rivalry, whether bringing Nikki back's really the best idea, but we'll see what happens in the future weeks. Returning to Jackie backstage, she is with Sheamus and she says, "What is it about this rivalry with Rusev?" Sheamus says Rusev thought he could return and clear out whoever he wanted. Well, it's not happening under my watch. And then it did make me laugh. Rusev turns up and shouts from backstage, "Ah, yeah," that sort of thing. That causes them to start wanting to fight each other and shout at each other again. Then Adam Pearce turns up and starts shouting and goes, "This isn't happening tonight. You two want to kill each other. You're doing it at Clash in Paris and that will be the end of it. Now get out of here. So that was a small segment, but it did make me laugh. It does when they just start shouting at each other sometimes. I thought it was rather funny. But my prediction was correct. They are going to have a showdown at Clash in Paris, and we will see what comes of that particular match. Another small backstage segment, and we have CM Punk going to see Jey Uso. Punk tries to team up with someone yet again, saying that we don't stand a chance against Rollins and his goons if we don't help each other to get to Clash in Paris. Jey Uso doesn't want to take the favour either. He says, "I don't want to owe anyone any favours. I just want to get to Clash in Paris and compete for the championship." Punk says, "Just letting you know that I'm here and I'll be here during your match this evening." So Jey Uso doesn't want Punk to get involved in anything, but I am pretty convinced we will end up seeing Punk either during the match later or after it, because there will be a brawl of some sort as far as I'm concerned. Happy to be proven wrong, but that is what I am expecting at this moment in time. Next, we're going to hear from Naomi. Judging by the interview she was having with Stephanie McMahon, I'm pretty sure she is going to announce that she is expecting a baby and therefore will have to drop the championship, or relinquish it, as they say, for that reason. Which I'm really gutted about because it was really good to see her in the spotlight again, and I felt like she deserved a really decent run as champion. But that is one of the issues when it comes to being a woman in sport. That is something that can't be controlled. If you decide that you want to have a baby with your partner, you are the one who is going to have to carry it. So it is likely she's going to be out of action for a while. But, you know, I'm about to listen to what she's got to say. So that was a great promo from Naomi. I was correct. She is with child and therefore relinquishes the title for the time being. But the way it was done, I thought, was really good. You could tell she was clearly emotional, and it was difficult to keep being the heel character. She did have the moment when she said to General Manager Adam Pearce, "You get out of my ring. I ain't giving this to you." And he left. So she tried to keep the heel character going, talking about Jimmy Uso and giving the evil laugh and whatnot, saying you guys are lucky because I was gonna take all of you for a walk on the leash or whatever she said, that sort of thing. So she kept the character to an extent, but clearly emotional, and it is a shame that this title reign has to end so soon. I think she's only actually ever lost the title once of the 3 times she's now had it. So she says she's going to be back and she will fight for it again, which I do hope we see. But in the meantime, best of luck, Naomi, and we're looking forward to seeing you again in the future. But for now, that leaves us with the question, what is going to happen with the Women's World Championship? I've got a few potential predictions. Obviously, Stephanie Vicaire will still be hanging around. She was promised a title shot, so will be involved. I do wonder if Io's going to come back into it. I know Rhea Ripley wants to be involved, so there will be a match at Clash in Paris. I'm pretty sure of it. But what it's going to be and who's going to be involved in it, we are yet to find out. So I'm quite excited for the announcement around what that's going to be and who is going to be involved. We next see Bron Breakker heading towards the entrance for his match, which is going to be the main event with Jey Uso this evening. But just before we get to the match, we do have another backstage segment, and it's the Judgment Day leaving for the evening. Finn Balor saying, don't worry about your loss tonight, you're going to be okay next week, which is going to be the match between Rhea Ripley and Roxanne Perez, I think was announced. So that's what he's referring to, and something that we do have to look forward to next week. They then ask where Dom is, and they find him with El Grande Americano, and he says he's just making sure they have reinforcements, effectively. So what role's he going to play in the future? Not entirely sure, but we will find out in due course. So now on to our main event. I've said what I think is likely to happen. There will be a brawl by the end of it between the Vision and likely CM Punk. I don't know if LA Knight's going to get involved or what's going to happen. And possibly we could get a return from Roman Reigns. That is something that I predicted would happen last week. It didn't, but who knows, he tends to surprise us. So let's see what happens in the match first, whether we get a winner, which we probably will, with it being Extreme Rules, no disqualification. But who that's going to be, not entirely sure. So we'll see who gets involved and what the match is like. I'm still hoping for some good moves and good performances during this particular match. So the main event goes largely as I predicted. We had about 10 minutes of match before people started getting involved. There's not a huge amount to say about that, really. It began with Jey Uso coming out with a shopping trolley full of weapons, which I thought was quite a nice touch, to be fair. And there was a lot of hitting each other with steel chairs and whatnot, or using them as part of moves. The thing with matches like this is there's often not a huge amount of moves really used, because they use the weapons to injure each other instead. I did like it when Bron Breakker jumped off the ring with the bin and hit Uso with that while he was on the announce table. I thought that was pretty good. But again, not a huge amount more to say about that part of the match. We have Bronson Reed interrupting when it looks like Jey Uso's about to win. Then LA Knight comes out and begins the brawl that I predicted. Then following that, we had the interruption from Seth Rollins, which again, I was pretty certain was going to happen at one point. And who then comes out? It's CM Punk, who brawls with Rollins into the crowd after accidentally putting LA Knight through the table when he was pushed by Seth Rollins. And it's likely Knight isn't going to forget that, even though the footage is there, that Punk didn't do it on purpose. But there's a lot of tension in the air between them at the minute. So moving on, it then looks like Bron Breakker is going to win as he sets Jey Uso up to be put through the table, I think, and it's at that point when Roman Reigns does come in and interrupt. His spear to Bron Breakker and throwing him back in the ring enables Jey Uso to hit the splash, and he is the winner of the match on the night. Which, as I said, I think he needed to give him momentum going into the Fatal 4-Way, but it's also done in a way where it doesn't make Bron Breakker look weak, which is good. Though the interesting turn of events that I wasn't expecting, but I guess the clues were there, is that we are going to get Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed at Clash in Paris. And I think that's going to be a good match, and I think it's going to be key for both of them. I'm not entirely sure who's going to win it. I'd say Roman is probably slightly my favourite, given he was pinned at WrestleMania and only has the one win in the tag team match since then. But a win for Bronson Reed could do a lot to really push him further as a character to be taken seriously, because I do believe he's got a lot of good wrestling ability. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's a given, as I said, that Seth Rollins will win the Fatal 4-Way, but we will get there. So I'd say that's about it for the show. We had a few matches, relatively enjoyable. I think a lot of tonight was really trying to prepare us for what's to come at the next pay-per-view, which a lot of episodes are. But I don't think we had a huge amount of things drawn to a conclusion this evening. So, thanks an awful lot for watching. Next week it's going to be in Birmingham, in my home country of the United Kingdom. I might even be able to watch that one live, but I am expecting to have family around, so I'm not entirely sure what my schedule is going to be. But my next wrestling video, I do aim for it to be this Friday night's SmackDown. I am away this weekend, so I'm not entirely sure what content I'm going to be able to bring, but I will aim to give you some sort of analysis. So thanks again for watching, thank you to Philadelphia for hosting, and I will see you all next time round.